Okay, we're back for summer school e-commerce ops edition. Excited to be joined today by Jason from the book team. Jason, thanks for joining me.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Well, as everyone knows, following along the series, the goal is to really bring on the experts that know their stuff. And couldn't think of anyone better than Jason to be here today to talk about revenue recognition. So just like every other session, we're going to get right into it. Jason, I'm going to hand you over the mic to get into the session, and then I'll chime in at the end with a couple of questions from there.
Perfect. Sounds good. And I'll talk real fast. This will be a short little session, but we're going to talk about best practices for revenue recognition for e-commerce, which is getting more and more complicated. And I'm the founder of Bookkeep, and we do accounting automation for Shopify and other platforms, and we help automate your revenue recognition. So if you have clients, assuming you're accountants or you're in-house at a business that's using Shopify, you're probably already understanding how complicated things are getting and how quickly things are moving. Shopify continues to get better, being able to do cross-border, being able to do so many features within the platform, especially also POS systems. And things keep changing, and even the reporting keeps changing in Shopify. So it just keeps getting more complicated. You've got also your marketplaces, you've got social media platforms that you can sell on, and different payment processors also through Shopify makes revenue recognition and payment reconciliation even more complicated. And like I said, with retail, once you start getting into POS locations in Shopify, things start getting really complicated. So the reporting inside Shopify tends to be fragmented. And sometimes also the reason, to step back, the reason I started Bookkeep was because I have a lot of experience in e-commerce and POS, having started a POS company. And in all of my experience, also as a retailer, and I still own a retail store myself, in all my experience with POS systems and e-commerce systems, the last person to get the reporting and the automation they need is the accounting team. So that's really why we started Bookkeep, and so we're really automating and reporting, but reporting through automation, revenue recognition, and payout reconciliation. And it's getting harder and harder to do, like I was saying, to do it manually. So what is revenue recognition? It really just means in e-commerce, it really just means that it's different in e-commerce than retail. Generally in retail, someone comes into a store, picks it up and leaves, and that day is the revenue recognition because they left the store with the item. In e-commerce, it tends to be, depending on the size of your business, it tends to be either when it was sold, if you ship it right away, and also on the size of your business. If you're a small business, sometimes you're just going to recognize the revenue when the customer paid. But as you get bigger, you start to fall under regulations where you have to report your revenue based off of when the items were shipped. And when, for larger e-commerce businesses that work on Shopify and Amazon, not all your items ship out of one order all on the same date. So you have multi-fulfillment dates for a single order. It gets to be really complicated. So what really revenue recognition is recognizing the revenue either when it ships or when it was sold, and ideally based on the line items that were shipped or sold, and not based on the whole order. But usually it's all the whole order, but sometimes it can be broken up. So one thing to note that's probably the most important thing to recognize, Amazon actually reports their revenue in their internal reporting based off the shipping date, whereas Shopify reports all revenue based off the sale date. So often this isn't that big a deal for a lot of customers, but if you really want to start getting your books accurate, you want to get Shopify and Amazon lined up doing revenue recognition in the same way, and Bookkeep can help you do that through our automation. So go to the next screen. So proper revenue recognition is really based off fulfillment dates, not order dates. The important thing to understand is you report revenue separately from cash received. So what Bookkeep does in our automation is we post journal entries based off the revenue that should be recognized on that day. And then we post journal entries based off of the payment deposits, and make sure that within our journal entries, you can reconcile it through a clearing account to make sure that you got paid for everything that was sold. And that, of course, gets complicated to do manually when you're dealing with multiple payment methods. You're using Shopify, you're using Shopify installments, you're using PayPal, as well as other payment methods through Shopify. It can get complicated to do manually, and our automation helps you do that. So the key thing is to understand is as the business gets bigger, you need to be recognizing your revenue daily in your accounting system so that you can do proper, so you can go back for audit reasons, so you can go back for reporting reasons. You want to be able to know how much did they actually sell the day before Thanksgiving? How much did we actually sell the day before Christmas? And if you're reporting revenue based off of when your payouts hit, that's completely incorrect as your business grows. In the early days, it's common, it's extremely common to report revenue based off of payout deposits, but the proper way as you grow and the best way to make sure that you have the best metrics for your business, and your best metrics are your financials, is to report revenue based on the day that it was actually recognized. So that's where we're talking about cash received. Subscriptions and prepaid orders are all separate. That actually doesn't recognize revenue right away. Subscriptions get tracked. Those are a little more complicated in Shopify, but they get tracked basically when they ship. I talked most of these points here, but basically you really want to think about your payout deposits as reconciling to your revenue, and not so much as your revenue. So, one thing yeah, exactly. This is what I talked about in the last slide, which is really to make sure that you're booking your revenue and you're booking your deposits separately to reconcile. And the other reason that that's so important, and again, it's extremely common, but the other reason that's so important is your deposits contain in them sales tax that you have to then set aside. And often with Shopify, there's a whole bunch of adjustments that get removed or added to your payout deposits, and some of those adjustments can include marketing fees, and Amazon, of course, is well known for that. All the marketing fees that get removed before you get your deposits. So booking your deposits as revenue it just doesn't work, and so it's important to be able to use a tool like Bookkeep to help you properly book those automatically with all the fees properly booked and the payout deposits reconciling to the revenue. As you know, if you're in-house or you're the owner of a business, it's important to work with an accounting firm that understands e-commerce, because not all accounting firms are willing to touch e-commerce. It tends to get a little complicated, but there's a lot of really, really good accounting firms that focus only on e-commerce, and those are the ones you want to look for if you're looking for an accounting firm. And again, find the tools that handle your accounting and your sales tax automatically. So really, final point is to learn how to get your financial operations in order. You really want to think about, you want to focus on the tools to help your accounting team automate, and that's going to help you grow, because you're going to have front end reports that you look at, but you want to make sure those front end reports are lining up with your financials. And that's kind of, as the business owner, you need to be reconciling that. I do it in my own business. What my team says they sold doesn't really matter to me until I make sure that that's exactly what hits our books and that was what was deposited. Works the same in retail. Things are changing quickly. AI is changing. Shopify is using it intensively, mostly to help people get their stores set up right now. But it can be very helpful to accounting teams too. But AI, one thing to note about using AI in automation is it seems to not do it the same way every time. So we don't use any AI in Bookkeep in our regular automation flows. We only use it for coding right now. But things will change. But you want to start automating as much as possible so that you can really focus on reconciling and making sure you're delivering the right reporting to your owners. I think that's all I have here for revenue recognition in a short couple minutes. Any questions?
Yeah, Jason, that was awesome. I had a couple questions. I think one, you talked about the differences between reporting on fulfillment date versus when that order was placed. Could you kind of talk about what's the biggest challenge if someone is reporting not on that fulfillment date?
Generally it's going to be okay until you get audited. I mean, I believe you fall under some audit rules as you get over, I think 10, 25, even up to 25 million. It might be the cutoff, I believe, where you are required to start reporting based on fulfillment date. It also depends on the type of business. A lot of furniture stores we work with tend to, they're reporting based off fulfillment, of course. And as everyone knows who's in e-commerce, an order can get placed, but a lot of things can happen before that ships, the wrong item, they change the address. And sometimes if you report that right away as revenue, even though it's going to change and get more complicated. So, but it is complicated because a lot of the software platform, the Shopify included, don't have very good reporting of revenue based off fulfillment. That's where Bookkeep can really help with Shopify. Most of the other platforms don't actually have fulfillment revenue reporting. It's mostly based off of payment date. And sometimes, to know, even with Shopify, sometimes, honestly, a lot of platforms do this, even with Stripe. As soon as you create an invoice, or a draft order in Shopify, they are showing revenue in your reporting. So even if it wasn't paid for, so you really can't always, take the reporting in those platforms as your accurate revenue. We see lots of times where people don't get paid for orders that they thought they got paid for. They might have shipped them, but they didn't close them out properly. They didn't get their credit cards deposits for those orders. So, eventually you'll figure out where those gaps are, but we can help with our automation, and that's really where reconciliation to the payout deposits is important. Just booking your payout deposits as revenue misses a huge amount of reconciliation, loses a huge amount of errors, catching errors. It's better to book revenue and then reconcile to payouts because you're going to find out where the holes are.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I like that example you mentioned with the furniture store, right? Where I think that is much more clear,
Yeah,
where the order date and the fulfillment date will have quite a gap in
long.
most scenarios, right? Yeah.
Yep, totally.
One other similar kind of question, you talked on subscriptions quickly, but any other, how do brands say that's a subscription brand that goes out monthly? Is that always
Mhm.
based off of, again, the fulfillment that being sent? I would love to kind of dig in a little bit more on the subscription side.
Well, it would essentially be the same. If they paid annually, though, for that subscription, of course, you're only going to recognize the revenue when it ships on the fulfillment. And
Mm.
we don't run into a lot of that with Shopify right now. Most of it's shipping. We can still do it based off fulfillment, but I think we're going to start seeing more of that through the Shopify platform. But yeah, basically, it's based off fulfillment. Very similar to software revenue recognition. You need to recognize it when it was incurred, which was during that month, even if they paid up front for the year.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's super helpful. Awesome. I love it. Well, I learned a lot today, and I hope that everyone listening has as well. If someone wants to put some of this into action and work with your team, how would you recommend they get in touch?
To work with Bookkeep, it's as easy as going to bookkeep.com and signing up. If you're in Shopify, you can also just go to the app in Shopify and get started right there. And yeah, we're really experts in automating your accounting for Shopify and getting financial clarity in Shopify, which is getting harder and harder as Shopify gets more complicated and more powerful.
Totally. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, Jason, thank you so much. I hope everyone got a lot of value today talking all about revenue recognition. So, thanks for joining us. Jason, thanks for taking the time, and we'll see you
Mhm.
with the next session. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.